Nothing funny better happen. I can't clip anything. Give me a sec. Okay. It's fixed now. Alright, we're playing more of this fun little game. Alright, let's play pet.net. Alright, let's go. You can't ascend until after I get a diamond medal. Max out your stats, let's go! Let's go again. Why am I itchy? I know what I can do to make this stream more exciting. Setting it up. Is curses on? Curses? Oh. Why isn't Firefox working? Girl, you did not have to save those images. You did not have to save those tabs. I'm gonna go get water real quick. What was it like to have for my existence to be there without me actually existing there? You know what I mean. This doesn't work unless I have Firefox. Okay, I'm gonna try something funny. Hold on.
Of course, of course. Look at this already in the morning. Always with the mornings and these people. Come now, gentlemen. Achtung, we have work to do. Guten Morgen. Wake up, Luby. We have a gig tonight. Come now, Luby. We are playing tonight at the Lamplight, and Mr. Pinkwater will want us there promptly. And so where is Sly? Huh? It's almost time to get up, and he's not awake. Where is he?
Sleeping.
Ach, Schweinehund mit Schlag. Slide! Ach, was ist das? Get up, we have work to do.
I just need like 10 more minutes, okay?
Hey, good morning, Stavros Luby. What's up now? Oh, y'all ain't no time for standing around lollygagging and whatnot. We got a gig at the Lamplight tonight, so let's get moving, y'all. We gotta get snapping and a cracking, so let's get to packing. Y'all. We loaded up and ready to roll.
There will be no rolling.
I guess I should've got an oil change.
Oh, yeah. Sweet seat stop.
Thank you, I do try.
Yeah, sweet.
Oh, well, look at that. Look, this is where we get off.
Oh, ready? Yeah, that didn't take long at all.
Yeah, short and sweet.
Strucely.
So now how we get to the club?
Hey, use my speeder band. Mr. Pinkwater's waiting.
You're late. Get your junk on stage. Set up. Start playing. Keep it bumping. Keep 'em grooving. Don't you skip a beat and don't you drop the ball. And especially do not give me no lip.
Check. All right, dog. Let's get your keys set up.
Ach! Nein! Oh, show! This is highly sophisticated, technologically delicate instrumentation for which only I am properly trained and skilled. Your help is neither necessary nor appreciated. Be off. Off with you now. Shoot.
Yeah, man. Look at my man. Are you seeing all this deliciousness?
Yeah, cupcakes. Need cake, coins, need coins, needs coins. Where my nickels at? Where my diamonds at? Where my coins? I got no coins. I got nothing. I got no nothing. If I got nothing, I got no keys. If I got no keys, I got I need a coin.
Oh, man. Now, this is a hell of a shit right. All right. That's what I'm talking about, ladies. I'm looking for some big fun. Come on, we gonna make tonight like bed knobs and broomsticks, baby. Ooh, Lansbury's.
almost done, guys. I can feel it. Setting up. Almost done setting up. That happened. Did something happen to Firefox recently? It's not doing well.
The monkey!
Okay, I found something I'm adding to the list. In case you were wondering, we're gonna do the YL while I'm doing grinding minigames. And obviously, if I laugh, I have to lose. Alright, let's go. This.
The monkey!
Just waking up in the morning, you're the guy. I don't know what today seems kinda odd.
Gotta go downstairs, gotta have
Some pizza. You mix it in your body and then shit it up.
Okay,
Patient data can be compromised with wireless flaky 5G business internet with Optimum Business Secure.
Yes,
okay, I
hello.
remember why I
was
started
wondering
using
if you could-
Firefox. All my plugins have been uninstalled, haven't they? Bro. We're not 20 minutes into the stream and I haven't started playing yet. This happens every time. Wait a minute.
could play
I think
that
we can do
song
it, guys.
again.
Which one, man?
The one that goes beep boop wop beep wop beep beep boop wop boop beep boop wop beep wop beep wop boop wop beep beep boop wop beep wop beep beep boop wop boop beep.
Is Brickbuster still playing? Oh my gosh. Oh, it turned back on after I left and came back.
Beep boop wop beep wop beep wop boop wop beep beep boop wop beep wop beep beep boop
Let's go.
beep boop wop beep wop beep wop boop wop beep 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 wop wop beep beep wop.
No, man, you're thinking of
Beep boop boop bop beep boop boop.
Can I have some shrimp broth, please?
Yeah, you really should not be eating that.
I feel like we haven't seen that one yet.
Memphis, man.
That last one was one of my favorites, so. That's a lot. I swear if this music is copyrighted, I am going to I'm gonna call Kaze into the side of YouTube headquarters. With my okay, I left. Alright, I'm moving. Is it possible to lose? I'll exit.
So as you drive over them, your tyres make a noise. They play a note. Really? This road is musical.
Is it?
It's musical. Okay?
Can we get much higher? So high.
I'm in love with a titanically ugly girl.
Gotta be kidding me. That was so free.
Where are the chips? They're sold out. Will you look in the back for me? Yeah, hang on.
I like this one too. I like all of these. I picked these memes.
Uh-oh. You.
That's your toothpaste.
Let's get one thing crystal clear. I can brush my teeth
All alone on a Friday night?
Okay.
That last bit was lucky. Oh no, not this one. I feel like it's a very unique, grounded kind of hell to have to look at your own meme playlist and try not to laugh at it. Like, you kind of know what's happening, but at the same time, you really don't. How much is that? Okay, let's go to hide and seek next. Oh, frickin' hide and seek.
Well done, Crash. I knew I could rely on you. Now listen carefully. These holograms are hard to maintain. During the course of my intellectual pursuits, I have stumbled across a force that threatens to destroy the world. Crystals are the only means of containing it. The fate of the world is at stake. It is imperative, therefore, that you bring them to me.
Crash? You there, Crash? 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 Are you there, Crash? Crash? Are you there, Crash?
Don't touch me, harlot! Can you guys, like, stop having relationship issues while I'm on the phone with my dentist?
That's how we do it in my garden.
Now I'm getting paid cash with Atlas Earth. Yeah, virtual land all across the globe. The next wave is digital, catch me on the way up. The glow up is visible, couple more. Watch mine go up, it's about to go nuts.
His income is less than a cent.
I'm getting paid right in cash with Atlas Earth. Atlas Earth. Atlas Earth.
Don't touch me, harlot! Can you guys, like, stop having relationship issues while I'm on the phone with my dentist?
That's how we do it in my
it's in a
garden.
loop. My favorite battery brand.
That's how we...
Okay, I almost laughed at that.
Yoshi in a barrel, dude!
This one does seem a bit difficult.
Oh my god, holy shit.
A man has fallen for a man in Lego City.
I like this one.
Ahoy, Sponge Boy Bob! I've been grabbed by Luigi at 6% because I got greedy and whiffed an air. I am now going to take 93.5% for making a single mistake at the beginning of the game, and I will soon need life support.
I'm at the Pizza Hut. What? I'm at the Pizza Hut. What? I'm at the combination Pizza Hut and Pizza Hut.
I'm at the Taco Bell. I'm at the Taco Bell. I'm at the combination Taco Bell and Taco Bell.
Wait.
Guys, look!
that one.
Hey everyone, it's time for another Top 10, and this week we're kicking it old school with a classic that is back kick. Top 10 numbers from 1 through 10. Starting us off at number 10, it's number 7. At number 9, it's number 8. And at number 7, it's number 9. But look out, 7 at number 6, it's number 4. Quick recap, because number 9 was number 8, which you'll need to know the context for this next number because it's number 5 for number 4. And at number 4, it's number 2, but number 3 this week is also number 5. That's right, folks, there are 2 number 5s at number 6 and number 3. In your face, number 3, you didn't even make the top 10. And at number 2, it's number 1. So close, one, but there can only be one number 1. And that one number at number 1 is number 5. You number 1 and 3, your numbers are garbage.
That was a really good one. Oh no. Bro.
Inside me. Inside me.
Oh, this is nice.
I like this one.
No, that's not nice.
You like how I walk? Do you like how I talk? Do you like how I face the simple? I have a wonderful wife, I have a powerful job. She criticizes me for being egocentric. You put this humanities into the wall. If you see me clear, I can stand it sometimes. When you show all the clovers on the side of the hill, I was observing the place. I've been here, I know you open source of skin. I know you're making me cry, this is the way that I am. I've been living a lie, I'm metamorphing to scheme. Protected undercover, brotherhood, objective of sin. Oh no, yeah.
Theoretically, I could probably do the rest of it. Oh my gosh. Just kidding. Don't get copyright claims, please.
Cathedral City! Cathedral City of Bentos!
I wasn't frickin' paying attention.
How long are you prepared to keep this up?
Nico.
You just killed Squidward. It's 69 degrees with this song and this video.
Pulling out the coupe at the lot, told her fuck 12, fuck SWAT, busting all the bells out the box. I just hit a lick with the box, had to put the stick in the box. Pour up the whole damn seal, I'ma get lazy. I got the mojo deals, we been trapping like the 80s.
Free pizza, goddammit. Alright. Joke's on them though. I poisoned their pizzas with C4.
It's one of my favorite hot sauce moments. Oh my gosh.
Does this crap even work? Sausage!
That was a miracle.
Progress report.
Oh, it's an older code.
Skipper I can't make it out. You, higher mammal. Can you read?
No, Phil can read though. Phil?
Use overdrive with standing punch, kick, slash, head slash, dust, kick, slash. Dragon install!
I still don't know how to beat that.
Mark this day in the history books, for today, Lego Star Wars 2 hits the shelf. Barry, I believe you have a copy of Lego Star Wars for me.
Homer, what is it? Slow down.
You're gonna for the red arrow.
Aww, they're scrunkly. That's my drum.
Double tap now if you'd scrunkly the win!
I'm too good at this fucking game.
This girl ate only purple Go-Gurt for 10 years of her life, and this is what happened.
Slurp on my girt, cause you know it's part. Put me in the dirt, put me in a shirt.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, my final guest of the evening is Hannibal Buress.
Morpheus, Dorpheus, Orpheus, go eat some walruses, orifices, porridges.
I swear I
Morpheus, Morpheus, go get to the buffet and walruses. Corpidus, corpses, Worcestershire sauce, go into your orifices. Red pill, blue pill, Morpheus, walruses. Seashells by the seashore, Orpheus.
I swear I clicked on him, Chad.
Morpheus drinking a 40 in a death basket. Arr.
I'm going back to channel surfers. This is ridiculous.
Where are the chips?
I'm vetoing that. We already saw that like 5 minutes ago. Oh no, not this one.
Bill, I just have one question for you. What is it, Ted? What color is an orange? Ted, you bonehead. Its color is the same as its name, just like a lemon.
Lick a tongue. Okay, I feel like we're about to learn a new type. Republican?
Are you telling me he's the chosen one? This whole time? It wasn't me!
This one. I love this one. I feel like nobody else knows about this meme. I've never heard anyone reference this specifically. No, well, it could get me DMCA'd.
A ver, Cactus, quédate quieto un momento.
Can we get much higher? So high.
Oh, the misery. Oh no, I remember this video.
You're a bad player.
actually hype. Oh my goodness, yes. Okay. I am going to. Somebody's going to
David,
die.
what has happened to your hair?
Answer?
It's what has happened.
What has happened to your hair?
It's called hair dye. I'm an acting chameleon. FFS.
And there's a lot of hairstyles as well for you.
What has happened to your hair?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. What about my hair? Canteen culture. I went blonde.
Damn good. Alright, so how does this one work? Yeah, alright, we'll try this. Please beatbox the Splatoon 3 theme. I don't...
Video paused. Do you think you're Netflix?
I don't think I can do it.
Okay, white a freak. Come on, Edge.
Can do a Bernie impression. Hey, Aurora, can you give us your Bernie Sanders impression?
When
does Bernie
I go
Sanders
to YouTube.
Man, I got a present for you. Check it out.
You dropped the fish! Aurora made me laugh too hard, man!
I swear I clicked on him.
It's our plant. Está enferma. Sí, it's sick.
Don't worry, Tools. The plant is.
Uh-oh. It's him. Ah!
I freaking love this video. Okay, give me another chance.
Welcome to Grat.
Welcome to Grat. Say this all the time for no reason.
Hmm?
This is just a good meme. Okay, this game is especially not conducive to watching videos at the same time. Oh my goodness.
He will never be a strawberry elephant.
إذا كنت قدرت بسرعة تحب وتعشق تاني لو كنت هوتني كان عمرك كله يدوم قضاك علشان تنساني ازاي حبتني
Swear if this song is copyright claimed.
قدرت بسرعة تحب وتعشق تاني لو كنت هوتني كان عمرك كله
Jerbias, come on.
You want pizza there? Who you gonna call when games are there? Who you gonna call when there's an animatronic bear? Come down to Freddy Fazbear Pizza Freddy Bear.
Are you guys not impressed?
If it's not a duck, men will die.
A duck, men will die.
Men will die.
Oh, this is one of my favorite memes. I keep saying that. These are all some of my favorite memes, okay, chat? I need more power.
Morning, Mr. Griffin. Nice day.
Yeah, it's a little cloudy.
It's absolutely cloudy. One of the worst days I've seen in years. So, good news about the Yankees.
I hate the Yankees.
Heck, cheaters. That's what they are. I love your tie.
I hate this tie.
It's awful. It's gaudy. It's gotta go.
And I hate myself.
I hate you too. You make me sick, you fat sack of crap.
But I'm the president.
The best president, the you who said you hated you who love, hate Yankees, clouds. I'll have that fixed for you tomorrow, sir.
Oops, you have to put the CD in your computer.
Yep, it's not the other version. Vitamin C.
Vitamin C is Spanish for vitamin yes.
It's the fact that he's a floating head. Oh no, not the rocks.
Alright, we got his bets. Where are we gonna spend these on? I need to update my audio equipment. I've updated my audio equipment.
It's so stupid. I feel like you see the guns, and it really pulls you away from the shoes.
If I were a rich man.
Do I get copyright claimed here?
All day long I'd bitty bitty bum. If I were a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to work hard.
I'm not risking it.
Are you telling me he's the chosen one?
Oh, it's looped.
It wasn't me!
That video is just called Pig.
Alright, tomahawk ribeye, baby. No, I didn't drop it in dirt. Grow up. Smoke it at 225 until it hits 120 internal. Take it off. Let it rest for a sec. Then we're going to go ahead and sear it on a hot bed of charcoal. No, it's not burnt. Black rub. Remember from the beginning, grow up. Alright, cut a little bit away from the bone so you don't cut it in the bone. You can chew in the bone later. Cut off the ribeye cap. Cut off the bottom fat. Here's the eye.
I was mostly talking about girls.
No.
Hot.
What makes a dab ultimate?
What makes a dab ultimate?
It's gonna be loud, guys.
There are some questions that should never be answered.
There are some questions that should never be answered.
So as you drive over them, your tyres make a noise. They play a note.
I'm not skipping this because this one might actually get me.
Is musical.
Is it?
It's
Is it?
musical.
Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. I died with my head in me. Apparently I did not.
Weekly crowd. Weekly crowd. Weekly crowd. Weekly crowd. Weekly crowd. Create a perimeter around the survivors.
This song's probably copyrighted. Oh, come on. I need a much higher strength step than that. Oh my goodness. I know what this is, and I'm slightly more prepared than last time.
Oh, these are pretty cool bananas. Oh, these are pretty cool bananas.
How are my stats looking?
What is this weird show? It's like the only thing you know. You talk about it every day. You know this is child's play. Your private head is blurred, told to go join in on the herd. You know this show's for younger crowds. How can you say you're proud? Now think, bro, you think everything in here is pink. You spent your precious time, now you're walking a fine line, and then you have the nerve to ask me to observe these girly things. You open your mouth and sing. Ponies are just for girls, let the stand throw. Twilight's spark only keep high. Apple chuck and fluttershy. Do not be afraid, we will never fade. Rainbow dash and melody, join the herd, and you will see.
A double McSpanky with fries and a florp. That'll be $6.53. And $3.47's your change.
Okay, let's go.
You're supposed to push the buttons with the pictures of food on them.
Don't need to, Skeet. I memorized the prices and did the tax and change in my head.
Oh, okay, Mr. Magic
Okay.
Man. I also did not
Destroy
hear you say
them
food
out
with thank
there,
yous for
Aurora.
McSpankies to the customer.
Well, frankly, it struck me as
Oh my.
cliched. What do you think
Who is
about
in
this?
front of me?
Don't let our food
No
be
one
denied
now.
you. Put our
Wait, tomato
polyunsaturated
tea.
fats
What
and
the heck is that
triglycerides
guy
inside
on?
you.
Wait, I'm in front. Come on.
I memorized the prices and did the tax and change in my head.
Next is the Diamond League. Goodness, that's my one shot,
Picture
guys.
of money, picture of money. Ha! Gotcha!
Big McThankies from McSpankies.
Hey, dude, you missed a spot.
I got it. Just a little sodium chloride.
Actually, dude, it's salt.
That's what I said. Sodium chloride.
Dude, that would be salt.
That's what I said. Sodium chloride. That's what I said. Sodium chloride.
Now let's do this.
Push the buttons with the pictures of food on them.
That's true. That's true.
Off with the pants.
Oh!
Shampoo. Shampoo.
I'm in the cool league. Let's see how I do.
So.
Come on, man. Yours. Yours. You guys won't get that reference, but. Hey, yo, what? Now I just need a higher base stat again.
Station, right?
It's time to go back. Back into the mines. That means we're still doing you'll F you lose.
It wasn't a dream!
Also, yes, that is my go-to look in this game, and I think it's funny.
So here's your problem.
You're a gamer.
Five Nights at Freddy's. That's where I wanna be. Five Nights at Freddy's.
Bird face. N.
N on the crown. Kizuguchi. Spooky web. C の、invasion. C invasion in the hall. Menu X A. Google Map pin. Snack. Triangle からの、メニューレッグスからの、T 突き刺さり。Coming out of three. Dark star. C in the hall. P fake. P fake.
God save
the
I've seen so many of these Berserk memes that I'm afraid if I actually watch the anime, I'm just gonna start laughing when the emotional moments come on. But I don't want to because Berserk's emotional moments are supposed to be really good. You know? Oh my goodness.
First test here. Do the windows break? First test here.
I say this all the time.
Oh no! Oh man. Wow.
What? It was literally right there. Let's go.
Snow angles!
Snow angles!
Dear Mario. Yours truly, Princess Toadstool. Peach.
That's pretty good.
Obama!
That's how to give the gift of homemade chocolate chip. Get those brownies out of here, goddammit!
Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. $6 shrimp special!
Oh, first degree murder! Okay, I think I have to play it on Blitz or else it's not gonna give me a time penalty.
In the
and
photo
there'll be
shoots
no
you
point.
do with Vogue magazine and Cosmopolitan and Entertainment Weekly, Time magazine, your hair changes dramatically from short to long. Do you wear wigs?
No, I do not.
Have you worn wigs?
No, I have not.
Will you wear wigs?
Maybe.
When will you wear wigs?
Oh my goodness. Jorma has a...
Oh!
What the hell was that medic doing?
Hints of...
This is one of the realest things I've ever seen, and I am so close to laughing at any given moment.
So that's what led me to my normal seat in Dr. Dumfries' waiting room. If you leave the school, I shall
Okay.
embrace him again, and I sincerely doubt he would survive.
This is, audio from the Magnus Archives layered over contextual clips of Curious George.
They're not that stale.
I
Fellow
love this
Isaac
freaking
Newton.
video so much.
I don't know. Could be useful to have another witness when this escalates to murder.
Small hole discovered between wall of break room and adjacent room. Used by Squirrel as point of egress.
Oh no. False alarm. Just a dead rat.
Oh, at least the
go to magic now. Oh, I'm almost at max.
Oh, boo-hoo! Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
This gets really good, trust me guys. I could laugh at this. Wouldn't put it in here if I thought I couldn't laugh at it. I mean, it really does sound like a 2000s club mix. Like, musically. This is just the final form of the sad violin music. This is like... It's like the crab in evolution. Everything leads back to club music. And you can quote me on it. I had my finger pointing up and nothing happened. I suck rocks at this game. Okay, it's not bad. Let's go to channel surfers now.
No way she could not shake a chair and give me that and I am. Oh yeah.
Old daddy is bye-bye, baby. I'm going all the way to the top. Concerts, movies, baby, and animated. Nothing is gonna stop me, kid. Okay, all right.
I think I know what meme this is. I have a few different memes that use this format, but I think I do know which one this is. This is the one where I have to catch two, isn't it? Oh, it isn't. I think the character design in this game is really good.
Zaikin, do you speak? Два. Belkin, do you speak? Паничкин, do you speak?
It's the yeet, and then it gets followed up by the music. Oh my goodness.
Le ficheux de la toilette.
I almost got that one completely clean.
It's
Christmas! Yay! Happy Christmas! I love Christmas! Me too.
Tell me, did anyone happen to see Santa Claus? No? Now he's here.
I love Santa!
He's sending us a cause!
I
wonder what the
Scott!
Let us dance!
House!
Surprise!
Today is a good day!
Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas.
What is this? That was a curveball. I've never seen that before. I do not understand what the point of this is. This song. Wow, I didn't think I was gonna make that. Oh my goodness, my mouse disconnected. I didn't know that there was this. You can't do that. That's like the word that I misspell the most on a daily basis. I always think it's separate. It's separate. How long does this go on? And we go into the fractal. Excuse me. Did I lose? I'm not at 900, so I'm not done yet. Oh, I could be finding Drup. My bad. Hold on, let me lose. I want to find Drup. Put me in. I clicked on Drup. What do you want from me? What? Oh, this.
Woody Toy Story.
This gets stuck in my head.
Buzz Lightyear, Jesse Rex, Forky and Slinky, Mr. Potato Head.
Who's ready for Gaster?
What have I done?
Cut! No, man. You're making me fall asleep. To death, bro. Okay, the line is... Say what?
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 I don't know what this song is. This meme is really funny to me.
This character is like...
Goodbye.
Ramps!
We can use these as ramps.
Did anyone else hear that dialogue? Did anyone else just hear that? Sonic goes, ramps! And Tails responds, we can use these as ramps! He's right, though.
Give me more drug.
Think explosive thoughts. Surprise parties! Yoga poses! Pigs in airplanes!
Is this using a special sound font? I can really appreciate that if it's using like an Angry Birds themed sound font. That's amazing. Hey, who's there? I'm streaming. Do you want to watch memes with me? Angry Birds. No, come on, dude.
I have to go shower. I'm 313.
Yeah, guys. I can hit those high notes. Please hire me. Anyway. Oh no, I remember what this is.
What you want me to be, feeling so faithless, lost under the surface. Don't know what you're expecting of me, but under the pressure of walking in your shoes, every step that I take is another mistake to you. And I become so numb, I can't feel you there. Become so tired, so much more aware. I'm becoming this. All I want to do is be more like me and be less like you. Can't you see that you're smothering me, holding too tight, be afraid to lose control? 'Cause everything that you thought I would be is falling apart right in front of you. Every step that I take is another mistake to you, and every second I waste is more than I can take. I've become so numb, I can't feel you there. Become so tired, so much more aware. I'm becoming this. All I want to do is be more like me and be less like you. And I know I may end up failing too, but I know you were just like me, with someone disappointed in you. I've become so numb, I can't feel you there. Become so tired, so much more aware. I'm becoming
This might be the longest stretch I've gone, guys.
is be more like me and be less like you. I've become so numb.
looking like? That's pretty good.
Can you tell the court what that was?
Battery. Mr. Chairman, you recognize that man back? His name is Huel Davino. He's on our witness list. You bumped into him in the stairway. He'll testify he planted this fully charged battery on you over an hour and a half ago.
43 minutes.
An hour and 43 minutes.
Thank
you, Mr. Davino.
Wow, I got it on my
And
medal.
you felt nothing. No, it's a trick.
Enough
is enough.
I want to win all the diamond leagues. I only need one to evolve to ascend my baby, but I'm greedy and I want to. Sorry, I got that from Finch.
I'm not crazy.
Sorry, Freddie
I
Chen.
know it's swapped those numbers. I knew it was 1216. One after Magna Carta, as if I could ever make such a mistake. Never. I just couldn't prove it. You covered his tracks. You got that idiot at the copy shop to lie for it.
McGill,
please.
You don't have to.
You think this is something? You think this is bad? This chicanery? He's done worse. That billboard. Are you telling me that a man just happens to fall like that? No, he orchestrated it. Jimmy. He defecated through a sunroof. And I saved him. I shouldn't have. I took him into my own firm. What was I thinking? He'll never change. He'll never change. Ever since he was 9. Always the same. Couldn't keep his hands out of the cash drawer. But not our Jimmy. Couldn't be precious Jimmy.
I want to win the
Stealing
diamond
them
league.
blind. And he gets to be a lawyer? What a sick joke. I should have stopped him when I had the chance. And you have to stop him.
I lost. That's okay. Baby needs snack. I give baby snack of clean baby stump-dumps. Let me go get you some more food, son. Dirty, dirty baby. Clean the baby. Its health is bad. I have to put its health up. Do I even need to do that if I ascend it? Maybe. Ascend! Aurora has ascended to Pet Paradise. Huh? Huh? And who do we have here? Hatch. Drub! It's only fitting to name him. Doug. Baby. Oh my goodness, he floats. That's crazy. He doesn't need anything right now. I like this one. I want this one. What is this? Pet Paradise. You've ascended a pet, but it's pretty empty in here. Let's build it. Your ascended pets can be put to work to build permanent upgrades. The time it takes to build depends on how many pets are working on it, along with the complexity of the building. Oh. What is this? A place for pets to sleep? Okay. Got some more forum posts to read. Pet creepy story part 1 question mark? All right. This super creepy thing happened to my pet yesterday, guys. I need to share it. Okay, so I got home from school one day. He decided to open up pet.net as usual. Opened the game and everything seemed normal, but then, wait, hold on. Also, this story is really scary, so leave if you're scared easily. This ain't for babies. But, so he opened the game and everything was normal. Something was off. He went to the vending machine and saw a new egg called the blood egg. Super weird, right? But then he decided to buy it for $666. And then what happened? You're not gonna believe it. I'm shaking just thinking about it. I remember my first blood egg. Buckle up, kid. That's blood egg? I'm familiar with blood eggs. I have to deal with them once a month. Don't clip that. Okay, I'm gonna take triple caution, stay center. Oh, we got a bunch of eggs. Got so much money. Cloud egg. Grass egg. Oh my gosh. Boring egg. Sign me up. There's no blood egg. He lied. I have so much money burning a hole in my pocket, I might as well just go straight to the gacha. I got money. You've got to be kidding me. I got stink bombed again? Bro! You can just kind of have a snowman. Ugh. So hard to get him to do that perfect little boop off the side. They've all been reset. Of course. Good job. Unlocks second pet room slot? You can't go fast enough! Hello? Who is it? Train him. You pooped! I was gone for 2 seconds. Never mind. That was complete coincidence. Crazy.
Lisa!
Look what I found in my head.
Look, it's Krusty!
Hey, hey, kids! What the? Where the hell is everybody? Don't hang around me no more, kid. Oh! Ah!
Haha, bet you can't do this.
She just used her alt and now she's emoting.
Duetting this until this woman permanently destroys her lungs with toxic gas. So first we got ammonia-based toilet cleaner, okay? And that's bleach better. Okay, you've made mustard gas.
I can't put this version in this playlist, but there is a stitch that this person does with this video, where apparently the lady who did the video that they were reacting to kept doing it, like, months later. And the person was like, "You're still doing this? I am a trans woman now. That's how long it's been since I last ratioed you. Shut up." Think about it all the time, man. Oh no. Wow.
Advantage back team. Deuce.
Let me back in.
Yahoo! Excellent!
Fight me. Come. Victory is my destiny. Shoo. Booyah! Yo. Oh! Ha! Behold, know my power. Come back when you can put up a
Okay, I
fight.
laughed at that. I'm gonna close the game.
Yeah, let's go. Come on, pick it up and play.
Leave it to me. Yoo-hoo! Wow! Hey!
Together, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Together, 1, 2, 3. A, B, C.
Okie dokie. All right. Woohoo! This way.
I can change the future. This is the Monado's power. Hi-ya!
Now it's showtime.
Fight like breathe and back. Fight.
Here's one of my favorites, man.
Yeah, the Hoobie Looby. Hoobie Looby smells good. Hoobie Looby is the best place.
Duetting this until this woman permanently destroys her lungs with toxic gas. So first we got ammonia-based toilet cleaner, okay? And that's bleach batter. Okay, you've made mustard gas.
I laughed. Let's try this again. That last bit was really funny and I almost laughed at it. I feel like these sorts of challenges can only be done by people with ADHD, but y'all can try to prove me wrong on an empirical level. Oh no, not this one.
Hasn't been posting. So not like her at all.
Operetta!
Help me, Johnny! Don't let me go!
Baby!
Wait, how did you get? Wait, you're from Sega? Hey, you made that Sonic fan game over there? Oh, that? Oh yeah, I did. You're not charging $60 and including NFTs? No. Okay, that's nice. Oh my god, that actually looks awesome. Yo, put that on Game Jolt when you're finished, okay? Also give Sonic an unlockable car. This ain't a sequel to Cross Worlds, what the hell? I know. I thought I'd just make a joke or something. Oh, and I even made a Sonic rig and blender, and I'm selling it for 28 bucks. Wait, you made that from scratch and not reusing our exact same assets from our past Sonic games? Cost me a painstaking month of losing sleep. Oh, and I also made one for Shadow as well. Okay, we might get you to animate cutscenes on a sequel to Shadow the Hedgehog. And not counting Shadow Generations. Let us know if you want to work with us. Wait, seriously? Trust me, we've done crazier things. That was unexpected, but yeah. Anyways, back to work on this Mario emulator. We counted 28 violations before you could even introduce yourself. How did you get in my house? And why 28? I stopped counting because 28 felt more threatening. I'm emulating Super Mario 3D Land. Lawsuit! It's free. Cease and Desist Deluxe Edition. It's preservation. Exactly. You don't even sell these games anymore. That's exactly what makes this dangerous. It's not even public. I don't give a fuck. That's an even bigger violation. Foxy, step away from the emulator. God damn it. And now the feds got involved. What crime did he commit? He said Mario and emulator in the same sentence. That's it? He even swapped the logo for the poster of the Super Mario Galaxy movie, making it say, "You are Mr. Gay." Hey man, you mind if I check out that poster real quick? Yeah, you can look at it. It's no problem. Okay, thank you. Okay, but you're seriously suing him over that?
You got an image to protect.
I might be overqualified for this. He even served papers to an 8-year-old kid just for wearing a Mario hat. And as a result, we're making his parents pay 25% of their income for the rest of their life! Damn, okay. That's some draconian shit right here. Question this lawsuit or you're also getting sued. Dude, at this point, this is looking less like copyright enforcement and more like a personal issue. I know, right? Well, brand protection is personal, isn't it? You don't even have a warrant. Actually, yeah, you're right. I don't. So I'm just gonna... We make the warrants around here. Goofball! Okay, clearly this is the only guy who can issue a warrant. And you, on the other hand, are Nintendo, not law enforcement.
I can be.
How? It's that simple. Delete everything you have related to Nintendo.
Or you delete yourself.
Dude. And unfortunately, thinking about Mario every second constitutes to another violation. Stop making cease and desist and get out of my house! Come on, man. This isn't worth it. Let's go. Damn, I was about to get paid. I'm calling Sega.
Jumpin' jelly beans, you boys made it! I have the most amazing news! And it all has to do with these here cookies. Take a bite and see for yourself. Wow.
I almost laughed at that.
I'd move on. And probably forget about you.
I just love it when people reanimate this specific scene from, what is it, Ted? I haven't seen Ted yet, okay? You know what would have been a really good find at the thrift store? I got a huge thrift store haul. Like 20 DVDs. And listen, I didn't find Ted anywhere, but I did find Monster House, the first 2 Twilight movies, and Rise of the Guardians. So that's pretty good, right?
Who won? Who is next? You decide! Epic rap battles of something!
I'm about to sneeze, y'all.
Zoinks! It's the gay blade of the ghost set again!
The gay blade of the ghost set again. Again?
The moon is right. The spirit's up. We're here tonight, and that's enough. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time.
This is a work of art.
Party's on.
Roses are red. Violets are blue.
It's time of year. Simply
Plug.
having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time.
Let's go to the beach. Let's go swimming.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
It just progressively, consistently gets worse.
Let's go golfing. Don't bring it up.
Put your hands up. Over your head.
Tell me bring out the lobster.
Come out with your hands
Tell me bring out the lobster.
I gotta testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day I die, I'ma touch the sky. Gotta testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day I die, I'ma touch the sky. Back when they thought pink polos would hurt the rock. Before Cam got the pop, the doors closed. I felt like bad boy street team. I couldn't work the
There's
locks.
so many
Now let's
copyrighted
go.
materials in this
Take
that
them
it
back
just
to the
cancels
plan.
out
Me,
and I
I'm
don't
on
get
my mouth and
copyright
they do
claims.
all
That's
vain.
it.
Any pessimists, I ain't talk to them. Plus I ain't have no phone in my apartment. Let's take them back to the club. At least about an hour I stand online. I just wanted to dance. I went to Jacob an hour after I got my advance. I just wanted to shine. Jake figured line, dog, in due time. Now they look at me like, dog, you what I am. A hip-hop legend. I think I died in an accident. But this must be heaven. I gotta testify. Come up in the spot, let's take extra fly. For the day I die, I'ma touch the sky. Gotta testify. Come up in the spot, looking extra fly. For the day I die, I'ma touch the sky. Now let's take them I can't have it, I can't have it any other way.
You shall not.
Pause. You shall not touch the ring. Pause.
The mood is right, the spirit's up. We're here tonight, and that's enough. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time.
This is a work of art.
Party's on.
Roses are red.
Look, I'm going to.
Sakadung kading padung ding.
This one is crazy. Okay, I laughed at that.
Just ended.
Go.
They had enough of my ball nonsense. They just went, no more for you.
Don't get me copyright claimed. Don't get me copyright claimed. Please. Please. Audio jungle.
Apple of bottom jeans, boots of winter fur. She was grooving to the deep got low, low, low. Baggy sweatpants, a Reeboks with the straps. She was grooving and she looked at me when she turned around and gave that big booty a smack. She hit the floor and next thing you know, shawty got low, low, low. Shawty got low, low, low. I ain't never seen nothing that'll make me go this crazy. All night spending my dough. Had $1 million vibe and a bottle to go. Damn birthday cakes, they stole the show. Apple bottom jeans.
You left behind 2 turds. Okay. I should have taken breaks to check on his health. Okay. Well, we will hatch a new egg next stream. Next time I stream this game. Which I don't know when that will be. It might be Monday. Not sure. I'll figure it out. Yeah, Doug died. Rest in peace, Doug. I'm not Christian. That was me crossing myself. Can it pick that up? It's trying. Okay, I'm giving up.